and welcome to the Ask Dr. PIckel show. All right, so today our special topic of what we're doing, we're kind of doing kind of a special thing, which is a research update today. So I thought this was some interesting stuff, and it is in regard to grounding or earthing. And maybe many of you have heard of this, maybe many of you haven't. So we're going to talk more about it. Is it real? Is it, what is this thing about? I mean, you hear about people going out and walking barefoot outside. Who would expect something like that? Using even grounding mats or different ways to ground themselves. And what does this all mean? Because we ground. There's things that are grounded in our daily life. I mean, our houses are grounded because electricity runs through the wires and the cables, and we need that grounding system to prevent things. So again, when we look at this grounding or this earthing, we have basically the earth, and the earth that we're all on every single day is like a big battery. In fact, when we think of things, we have to think of things from an electrical standpoint, because we use our cell phones every day, which are electrical, and they send frequencies in and out all day long. We can't see it, but it happens. We have gravity that holds us on the earth. We can't see it, but it's happening all day long. Do we think about it? Do we try to explain it to our neighbor? Why am I standing here? How come gravity's working? No, we don't talk about this stuff. We don't talk about a lot of the things that go on, and they're kind of things that are just kind of in the dark as far as, do we attempt to even understand gravity half the time? No, we really don't research why it works. We just know it works and we're happy, and we don't even think about it. So we've got to look at these other things in a similar fashion as, hey, is this something that's plausible? Is it works? Is there research to back some of this up? Because there are definitely people out there that, patients of mine even, that talk about the health benefits they experience from earthing or grounding their bodies. And so how does this work? Kind of from a standpoint of the medical side, let's say, or even the looking into science. So basically the earth puts off what are called electrons all day long, every day. And a lot of this, think of our earth is a sphere, and it's inside of another sphere, which is called our ionosphere. So, that's up in the sky. And in between those, when those two things roll around each other, that causes static electricity, basically. Let's say your dryer's on and you have clothes in it, and you pull the clothes out of the dryer and they stick together, static electricity. So again, this occurs, this electricity. And so sometimes when that gets strong enough, when things change, what do we get? We get lightning. We get, different, it's like when clouds pass or go over each other, there's a static electricity, and you can see some lightning up in the clouds. So how does this relate in? So we've got this on the Earth's surface, we've got this electrical charge going on all the time, and it is a negative charge. Now we have to think about this differently, because when we think negative, we always think bad, where positive, good. Actually, when it comes to the human body, negative is good. Electrons are good. Positive things, positive electrical charges can actually be bad. Actually, our cells function at negative 20 microvolts. So we need this cellular charge to stay correct all the time, or most of the time. Now, it will fluctuate again with stress, with trauma, with things that occur in our body. And really that relates to our communication system. So back to electricity. Now, we described that there's this negative charge on the earth. Now, what's going on in our human body? How is it electrical, and how does it interface with this? So our human body has a lot of electrical phenomena going on a daily basis, and we don't think of it that way. We think of our body in terms of chemistry. We think of, vitamins and minerals, and I take this and it does this, and it's a chemistry thing. Or I take a medication and it does this to my body's chemistry. Or I have a hormone and it affects my body's chemistry. That's all chemistry. But chemistry is controlled by physics. The electrical side of the body controls the chemistry side. The chemistry side doesn't just work on its own. This electrical side, how does our brain communicate with every cell of our body? Electrical impulses. How does our heart beat and keep a rhythm? Electrical impulses. Everything in our body is electrical, even down to our DNA level. In fact, there was a scientist who actually, he took some DNA and he put it in a vial, and he was measuring how the DNA, the frequency that the DNA communicated with other DNA. And I was like, okay, what the heck? So how does he do that? Well, it's a pretty complex study, but again, he was measuring this frequency. Now, here's the interesting part, is he took the DNA out of one bottle, left some DNA in there, and put it in other bottles or vials, and measured across those. They were still communicating. There was still a frequency of communication going on between the DNA. How does that happen? You know, it's really, this is all what they call biophysics. Biological physics is this field. You don't hear it talked about. You don't hear studies about it. You don't hear about any of this stuff because it sounds weird. And it's like, wait a second. But, you know, even the earth, the frequency off the earth has been measured. So this electricity that comes off the earth is at a frequency. And one day a guy said, hey, I need to measure this. I want to see what it is. And he measured it. His name is Schumann. He measured this frequency. And then a guy who also does brain, this was back like in the 50s. And a guy said he does some measurements on brains. He kind of, after the invention of the EEG, electroencephalogram, he said, hey, I noticed that alpha waves in the brain, which alpha waves in the brain, these are the brain waves that we get when we're starting to fall asleep, when we're feeling relaxed, when we're feeling kind of our rest and digest system. Everything is happy and I'm more creative, and that's alpha waves. So he noticed that alpha waves were at around this same frequency, a specific frequency. And he said, hey, Mr. Schumann, can you maybe hone that frequency down a little and find out a little more? So is actually one of Schumann's students who said, hey, you know what? Let's figure this out. And he found out that frequency is 7.83. That's the Schumann frequency. So this is the frequency that the earth emits, 7.83 hertz. So isn't it interesting, or is it a coincidence that our body, these alpha waves, resonate at that same frequency? So if you go outside into nature, even if you're barefoot or even if you're not, but if you go walk on the beach, does it make you feel better? Usually. Does it make you feel more relaxed? Usually. If you're in a car, if you're on your cell phone, if you're going to work, coming home, or at work, if we're a computer all day, does that make you feel relaxed? Does it make you feel, oh, I'm so creative right now? No, it actually has negative effects. That's because positive ions are coming off of that. I know, again, positive, remember, positive means negative. So again, all of these things that we're surrounded with daily are affecting us in a negative way, not only from just these positive negative ions, but from a radiation standpoint too. Electromagnetic frequencies, EMF radiation, is also a problem. It's coming off my computer screen right now. So we're bombarded by this stuff all day long. And what they found in studies is this starts to affect our health, which is not good. And so this is what a lot of these doctors and scientists are trying to say is, wait, how does this grounding, this earthing maybe work against that? Does it help us with these types of things? And that's kind of what was done here in a study. In fact, let me bring this up. This is a very interesting study in the Journal of Inflammation Research, which is a great journal. I mean, of course, this journal is all about inflammation, which is important because that has to do with pain, healing, immune system. I mean, it has to do with everything. If inflammation is like the fire in the house, it's basically destruction. How does grounding affect this? And that's what these scientists did here. So when we look at this study, let me see if I can share the screen a little more. All right, I think that's all it's going to really let me. And again, I can get you the reference for this study, but basically what this study did is it went through. In fact, let me see if that allows me. No, of course not. All right. So yeah, there's about 14 pages to this, and it's a very interesting. Not only can you read through the study, but it also has pictures, and it's very interesting on some of the testing that they did. Basically, there was one. They have some different minor studies. It's kind of a review of some different studies in there, and one of them, it shows the ankle of a guy who was in the Tour de France. He fell off his bike. His wheel hit him and gashed a part of his leg out, not really his leg, part of his ankle, you know, a big chunk of flesh out. And it shows the picture after it happened, which looks pretty bloody and gross. And then it shows basically what these guys did is they put a couple of patches on him, a couple of electrode patches, and they grounded this. You know, who gets this kind of treatment? Athletes, of course. Athletes get kind of the cutting edge stuff. So they put these 2 pads on it, and then they took pictures of it, day 1, day 2. By day 2, it had almost healed. Pretty amazing. And that was just the effect of grounding. There's another one on there too, another big skin wound, which has been chronic for years in this person. And again, another thing where they did grounding, and you can see the pictures and watch it kind of heal up. So again, what happens? What occurs? Why is this occurring? And how does this cause these healing processes? So basically, these negative electrons that go into our body from the earth, if you're standing in bare feet, or if you're sleeping on a grounding mat, or sleeping outside in the grass, I don't know if you really want to do that, but basically these negative electrons that enter our body, they act as antioxidants, and they affect our immune system. So as antioxidants, basically whenever inflammation occurs, let's say I do get a wound or in my leg like that bicycle guy, those antioxidants come in, those inflammation comes in and starts an inflammatory process, a fire in the house, and this is oxidation occurs. So our antioxidants have to come in for the healing process, getting down inflammation and getting things to heal properly. So the earthing seems to have an effect on this, and I'll go over some more studies that relate to this here in a second. But so we're having this effect now. Even in some of these other studies, we're seeing timed things too. You know, the longer you ground, that changes things. In fact, there was another study where they just had people, they took like a group of men, they had them all eating the same thing. This was a peer-reviewed study. They had them all kind of doing the same thing. Basically, they had them lifting some heavy weights. They strained some muscles, and then basically they used grounding on half of them to see if it made them heal faster and have less pain and everything than the other half. And yeah, it increased recovery time. It increased the healing process, decreased pain. Pretty interesting. So again, a lot of benefits to this, and what can be done. So, and then we see that in this research paper, they kind of sum it up towards the end as they're looking through this and quite a few different things. They even saw on medical infrared imaging that basically when people grounded, they had less hot spots. There was actual temperature changes, which means decreased inflammatory areas in the body. Very interesting stuff. So, you know, this stuff is, you know, why don't you hear about this more? Exactly. And so as the study goes on, it shows how this grounding affects muscles, how it affects the brain. It actually affects the EEG scans, how it affects levels of pain. And then if they have sustained, let's say you do grounding for just minutes at a time. If you're doing it for minutes at a time, this has been shown to affect organ function and vasculature and blood viscosity. So basically you're increasing circulation in the body. Good stuff. So you're getting more oxygen to cells. You're changing metabolic function. and that seems to increase over a 20 to 30 minute period. So if you do grounding for about 20 to 30 minutes, you're getting some pretty darn good benefits. So let's say you go into hours. So now if you go into hours, we find that your circadian rhythm starts to change. Your sleep patterns start to change. Bone density starts to get affected. There's good studies with this in bone density. Your thyroid function actually can change for the better. Cortisol levels, like we talked about, sleep-wake cycle, adrenal glands. So this means that electrolyte and mineral balances in your body are changing. Electrolytes, electrically charged. Minerals, electrically charged. These things are being affected by this frequency, this Earth's frequency. And then when they said, hey, what happens when people ground over days? And that's really when they did that study of the men lifting the heavy weights that I talked about that got increased healing and things like that. So, if we say, hey, if this is happening over minutes, hours, days, what if you start to look into years? Can this positively affect our health over time? And this is what researchers are starting to say is, hey, wait a second. If we look at animals in wilderness, animals that always live outside, not your dogs that live inside or cats that live inside. And even if we compare those two, are diseases that they suffer from different? Do they get a lot of the cancers and a lot of the other autoimmune conditions and things like that humans get or even indoor pets get? So they're seeing a difference with this. And is this part of the difference? Possibly, a lot more research needs to be done here. There are some other very interesting studies with this. There was a study in 2009. It's the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine. And the researchers found that there's significant decreases in blood markers of inflammation on blood tests, as well as changes in white blood cell counts, which included what are called neutrophils and lymphocytes, part of our SWAT team there that kills the bad guys, and compared to non-grounded subjects. So a definite difference in your immune system and blood flow. There's another study in 2011 finding that, again, grounding positively affects the immune system. Another study in January 2019 called Frontiers in Physiology. They found that cytokine responses were improved. So let's take that. Now we're going through this coronavirus COVID issue here. What's the thing talked about a lot with that? The cytokine storm. This is where your immune system suddenly goes into this major inflammatory attack that overwhelms your body and can't get calmed down. Can grounding help maybe to aid in the cytokine storm and helping with antibody responses? Absolutely a possibility based on that study. Another study in 2010, they found that grounding for as little as 40 minutes boosted respiratory rate and stabilized blood oxygenation. There's another study, this one's interesting, in 2017, the Journal of Neonatology. So now they're studying grounding with babies. And these babies were in the NICU. They were having some problems. And so basically they put these little grounding patches on the babies, and they noticed that these babies had a boost in vagal tone of up to 70%, meaning their ability to thrive really went up. Pretty neat there. Another study, August 2015, the Journal of Health. And this was a double-blinded placebo study, which is a pretty good study. So clear evidence in this study that grounding dramatically boosted circulation. Another one, 2014, this one's interesting. It was in the Journal of Cosmetics and Dermatological Sciences. So what are the cosmetic companies doing studying grounding? Well, here's what they noticed. They noticed that they grounded people through the soles of their feet. And they noticed that not only did it boost blood circulation, but it changed facial skin issues. Hey, good for the skin, especially the face. So they're also showed in that study that it doesn't affect just locally. If I'm grounding at my feet, it's affecting me globally. It's affecting throughout the body, not just on my feet. So very interesting there. And then another study in 2006, European Biology and Bioelectromagnetics, where they were checking patients' brain waves with an EEG, and they noted an immediate shift with grounding in the central nervous system. Hey, wow. This affects us completely. And there was another one here too with EEGs in the journal of 2011 Journal of Medical Hypothesis. And they showed that also grounding affects electrical activity in the brain. So we're seeing all these positive things, all these great things with grounding. Is it a miracle? No, I don't think it, but can it help with your health, especially if you already have a health condition? Yeah, I see it as it can only help. And how can we do this? Well, number one, probably the biggest one you understand is if you're indoors, you can get these what they call earthing systems, these conductive mats, pads, body bands, things that you can wrap on, just there's different ways of doing this, things that you can have while you're sleeping on them, things that you can use while you're sitting. And then, of course, we've got more of the free form type, the natural form, which is spending time barefoot outdoors, and especially on grass, soil, gravel, sand. These are all more conductive materials. So so absolutely, I see this as a viable modality in helping patients get better, and not only patients, but really anybody. And in today's world, I guess you could say, we tend to be, not on the ground at all. We're wearing tennis shoes or shoes that have rubber soles. We're on cars with rubber tires. We're blocking all of these electrical things all day, every day. And I was looking here to see if there were any comments that we can answer here towards the end. Some people have posted some great stuff here, some snippets that we need to look at. Someone with a burn on their wrist. So try it. I mean, put get some type of grounding thing, grounding modality, or go out and start putting your wrist on the ground. You may be careful with that though, because I don't want you to get an infection if it's a burn. But you could get one of those little grounding pads and put it on there, and we'll see if it accelerates the healing process. There's some other people posting on some different research benefits of grounding. Other people here, it looks like they use grounding. So fantastic. I think, just taking time on a regular basis to do this grounding, I think it'd be a fantastic thing. In fact, right after this show, I'm going to go out, take my shoes off, and get in the grass. So, all right. Okay. Well, I hope everybody has a great and wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Actually, I think we have another regular broadcast tomorrow on YouTube and Facebook. This one also on YouTube and Facebook. Don't hesitate to share this with other people. In fact, we appreciate it. We appreciate it if you give us the thumbs up and like all this. And everybody have a wonderful day, and God bless.